Good evening and welcome to Northbeat. I'm Shannon Scott. Megan Roberts is off this evening. Tributes are pouring in tonight from across the North and the country for Murray Sinclair. The former lawyer, judge, and senator died this morning at the age of 73. His family says he died peacefully, surrounded by loved ones. Sinclair spent much of his life fighting for fairness and justice for Indigenous people. He was also head of Canada's Truth and Reconciliation Commission, where he confronted truths this country is still grappling with. Cameron McIntosh has more now on Murray Sinclair's life and legacy.
There have always been those who are deniers of history.
A respected elder and statesman, Murray Sinclair laid the path for reconciliation in Canada.
And this nation must never forget what it once did to its most vulnerable people.
Born in 1951, raised in Selkirk, Manitoba, Sinclair's Anishinaabe name meant the one who speaks of pictures in the sky. He excelled in school, skipping 2 grades, was a star athlete and valedictorian, who went into law, originally aiming to enter politics.
I really became bitten by the law bug.
Racial hurdles were quickly apparent. As a young lawyer dealing with a client, a police officer mistook him for the accused.
He grabbed me by the arm and was going to lead me back to the cells because he assumed the white guy was the lawyer.
In 1988, Sinclair became Manitoba's first ever Indigenous provincial court judge. After a police killing of an Indigenous man, he was co-commissioner of a tension-filled inquiry into racism in Manitoba's justice system. He quickly felt backlash.
An RCMP officer came to my house and said, we have information that a City of Winnipeg police officer has threatened to kill you.
Nothing came of it. Sinclair kept asking hard questions. He rose to Queen's Bench and also led an inquest into the deaths of 12 infants in pediatric care in Manitoba. But it was the 2008 Truth and Reconciliation Commission where Sinclair cast the most light, spending 6 years listening to residential school survivors, uncovering truths he knew many would not want or be able to accept.
And the phrase I used to use with the staff is that we have to write this for the reasonable.
His 94 calls to action have brought some progress, particularly around awareness, but many remain unfulfilled.
The public still largely struggles with the question of what can we do about it.
Shortly after the TRC, he did get that career in politics, appointed as an independent senator in 2016. He served nearly 5 years, a platform he used to promote reconciliation.
I've been involved in the work of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. Why can't you just get over it and move on? And my answer has always been, why can't you always remember this?
He turned down consideration for Governor General, citing a desire to spend time with his family, but was a member of the Order of Canada. Through it all, he became one of Canada's most respected Indigenous voices. A mentor to many, including Manitoba's first Anishinaabe Premier, through his career, Sinclair dealt with countless stories of pain, despair, and racism, but at his core, remained an optimist.
As long as we have that belief in the need to improve the future, then the future will be improved.
Change he acknowledged would be slow, but remained confident is inevitable. Cameron McIntosh, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Murray Sinclair's work impacted people across the North, including here in the Northwest Territories. Garth Walbridge is a Métis lawyer in Yellowknife. He says with all of the titles Sinclair held, honorable was well-deserved.
He was a great guy. He was a very great man. One of the things I have said for years about the Honorable Murray Sinclair when he became a senator is that he really deserved that honorific, the Honorable. I know a lot of people who are politicians who've done good work and who continue to do good work, or, quasi-politicians like you might call a senator, but certainly Justice Sinclair deserved that honorific, the Honorable.
Walbridge adds Sinclair was a great listener who touched many lives. Yukon's Commissioner Adeline Weber is also remembering Sinclair as a good listener. She met him at the Truth and Reconciliation Commission hearings in Whitehorse back in 2013.
He very patiently listened. He listened You knew he was listening, and being very thoughtful about what you were trying to explain, as difficult as it may be. And, some people had very, very heart-wrenching stories to tell. He was a true leader, a true visionary. He gave people hope that their stories were listened to, that they were understood, they were believed, that today we're moving forward in very positive ways. He left a legacy in history that he'll never be forgotten. I think he'll be remembered for many, many years to come.
Sinclair's family says a sacred fire has been lit at the Manitoba legislature to help guide his spirit home. One person is dead, another seriously injured after a police shooting in Saluit, Nunavik overnight. A warning that this story contains some potentially distressing video and audio. This video posted on social media shows the moments leading up to the gunshots. Quebec's police watchdog, the BEI, is now investigating. So too is the provincial police force, the Sûreté du Québec. The BEI is asking anyone who witnessed the incident to contact them. This is the second investigation into police conduct in Saluit this year. In July, a video circulated online of a woman being dragged by Nunavik police officers. At the time, witnesses said she was having a seizure. A man at the center of a deadly shooting rampage in Faro, Yukon, pleaded guilty to murder charges today. Ralph Bernard Shaw admits to killing 2 people and injuring a third during his 2021 shooting spree. Jackie Hong reports.
Shaw stood in between his lawyers as the charges were read out to him. The 64-year-old appeared frail and had trouble hearing. Asked how he was pleading to 3 of the 10 charges against him, Shaw responded, guilty. Guilty to first-degree murder for killing 42-year-old Sangduin Honchayapum, guilty to second-degree murder for killing 73-year-old Patrick McCracken, and guilty once more to aggravated assault for seriously injuring another man. Honchayapum, who was called Sang by friends, was Shaw's estranged wife. According to admissions of fact read to the court by the Crown Monday, Honchayapum had left Shaw less than 3 months before he murdered her. The man who was injured was her new partner. He had been helping her move a couch into her new home that day. After killing Honchayapum and injuring her partner, Shaw went to McCracken's house and accused him of speaking badly about him. McCracken denied that, and Shaw fatally shot him too. The shooting spree lasted just under an hour, with Shaw firing into buildings and terrified residents placing numerous 911 calls. He was eventually arrested without incident. Shaw's sentencing hearing continues Tuesday. Jackie Hong, CBC News, Whitehorse.
Nunavut Premier PJ Akiagok could soon be removed from office. MLA Solomon Maliki introduced a motion to remove Akiagok as Premier. The motion will be tabled on Wednesday. Maliki is the chair of the Regular Members Caucus. He told reporters after question period that one of their concerns is what they see as a lack of transparency in the current government. He refused to give more details. Akiagok told reporters he was surprised by the motion. Akiagok says claims of a lack of transparency are false because his government has provided updates on its mandate. The Nunavut Legislative Assembly had an elder advisor on hand to help guide MLAs during its spring sitting, but in this fall session, there isn't one. And that's left at least 2 MLAs with questions about the program. TJ Deere reports.
After lots of conversations about the vans for elders, another part of the Government of Nunavut's elder strategy was brought up during question period on Friday. Iqaluit elder Lou Phillip was chosen to be the elder present for the spring sitting of the Nunavut Legislative Assembly, but there's no elder present for the current fall sitting. When Baker Lake MLA Craig Semilik asked why not, Culture and Heritage Minister Daniel Kovic said they have to consult with the office of the Speaker of the House. He said logistics would also have to be considered.
Whether we want to bring an elder from Khidimuk or Kivallik, for example, it will cost hotel and accommodations, and also whether an escort would be included.
That didn't sit well with Arviat South MLA Joe Savikatuk. He asked about it during question period and made his point clear when speaking with reporters afterwards.
That is not right. I mean, We respect our elders and we want our elders' wisdom as long as it's cheap, is the impression that was given, that cost was the major factor in terms of why an elder from Iqaluit was picked.
Savikatak says he meant no disrespect to Philip and that he didn't oppose an elder being present. During question period, Kavik said his office consulted with the office of the House Speaker, but Tony Akwak says his office was not consulted. Savikatak demanded an apology, saying Kavik misled the House, but fellow Cabinet Minister Lorne Kusugak jumped to Kavik's defense.
My point of order is this: on many occasions, this side of the House speaks with the Clerk of the Assembly in the absence of the Speaker's office, and it's been normally assumed that that's speaking with, on off time, speaking with the Speaker's office, Mr. Speaker.
Savikatak later said this response was good enough. However, he says he wants elders from the Kivalliq and the Kitikmeot to be considered to potentially be present for the winter sitting. TJ Deere, CBC News, Iqaluit.
Residents and businesses in the Northwest Territories paid nearly $69 million in carbon taxes last fiscal year. And according to an annual carbon tax report, that's a $20 million increase over the year before. Too much, says a Northern policy analyst and professor. Ken Coates says carbon taxes don't make sense in the North, and they worsen an already difficult and expensive living situation.
People in the Northwest Territories, particularly in the remote communities, understand very, very well that the cost of diesel fuel in particular is sky high. It costs an enormous amount of their monthly income to actually just keep their house heated.
Coates does say the NWT government is doing a good job of making sense of the revenue options. But he says when it comes to energy issues, the North should be seen as unique and distinct from the rest of Canada. Now, while the territorial government did bring in $69 million in carbon taxes, it paid out about $18 million in cost of living benefits to residents. Ottawa today released draft regulations that would force Canada's oil and gas producers to reduce greenhouse gas emissions dramatically over the next 8 years.
Those regulations will help to cut pollution by 35% below 2019 levels, while providing compliance flexibility. In doing so, we will create a cap-and-trade system for the sector. It will reward low-polluting facilities and incentivize higher-polluting facilities to invest. It goes after pollution, not production.
Environment Minister Stephen Guilbeault says the oil and gas industry hasn't done as much as other sectors to reduce emissions in the battle against climate change. Oil and gas operators emit more than 30% of Canada's total greenhouse gases. But this afternoon, an angry Alberta premier threatened to take the federal government to court over the draft regulations. Danielle Smith says they target her province unfairly because a de facto production cap would cause serious harm to the provincial economy. The regulations may not take effect, however, if a federal election is called before they are finalized. The city of Yellowknife is looking at new financing options to help homeowners interested in green energy. It's considering long-term, low-interest loans for residents through third-party lenders. That would help the city reach its greenhouse gas emission and renewable energy goals. A consulting firm hired by the city suggests eligible projects could be passed on to lenders who would then negotiate loan conditions with homeowners. The executive director of the Arctic Energy Alliance is pleased the city is working on a plan.
If they choose to move into sort of formal program design, then they can take a look at how those different pieces are going to fit together to ultimately benefit residents and lower their energy costs.
No word on what projects would be eligible for loans at this point, and the city has yet to commit to the plan. It says it will be discussing the report on November 12th. With the opening of Hay River's first electric vehicle charging station, and with several others slated to open in the territory this month, the NWT government's goal of a zero-emission vehicle corridor is taking shape. It's also opening up new roads for northern EV drivers. Carla Ulrich has that story.
Dennis Bevington and his wife drove around in a plug-in hybrid vehicle for years, and they loved it. So much so, they decided to go fully electric with a Ford Lightning truck. Bevington says driving their new EV locally is no problem, but longer road trips are trickier. Now, with the new charging stations opening up in the territory, he feels more comfortable about taking his truck on the highway.
There's a charging station in High Level, and there's and that's about 280 kilometers from Enterprise, I believe. I think that most of the larger centers probably have them now. Fort Vermilion has a supercharger. La Crete has a supercharger.
NT Energy, a sister company to the Northwest Territories Power Corporation, owns the charging station in Hay River. It says new charging stations will open up in Fort Smith and Betchaco by the end of November. And to those unsure how an electric vehicle will handle brutally cold northern winters, Bevington says he's happy to find out.
I'd be willing to report to anybody next year about how well this works out. It's a big investment, and I would recommend that people study it carefully before they do it.
The territorial government says more chargers will be installed in Fort Providence and Enterprise next year. It's aiming for the EV charging corridor to extend from Yellowknife to the NWT-Alberta border. Carla Ulrich, CBC News, Fort Smith.
Donations to the War Amps have a lasting impact on amputees. Today, your support gives them the artificial limbs and resources they need for everyday activities and learning to live with amputation. Having access to our essential programs helps amputees prepare for tomorrow on their road to independence. The War Amps is committed to improving the quality of life for Canadian amputees, but this wouldn't be possible without you. To learn how your donation helps, visit waramps.ca.
This is a proposed corridor for multiple pipeline projects.
You're crossing our territory on two ends of your pipeline. Who gave you permission?
Pipelines break of the pipelines would destroy water and everything in it.
They got to come through us first.
Is this an immediate evacuation order for all Coastal GasLink employees? I feel like we are at war. It's just all been building up to this point.
Yenta on the Passionate Eye. Watch free on CBC Gem.
Release him.
Why?
Well, I would say it's extremely bad form to arrest your new boss.
This man is actually in my custody. What did he do? Well, did you hear that? I'm being charged with,
This ranch isn't going down. Not on my watch.
It's the final day of campaigning in the U.S. before tomorrow's presidential election, and it's going down to the wire. Polls say the race is neck and neck. That's why both Kamala Harris and Donald Trump are sprinting across swing states today, working to make sure their supporters get out to vote and to win over Americans who haven't made their choice. But in this unprecedented election, in a deeply polarized country, there's also a sense of nervous energy heading into voting day. The CBC's Katie Simpson has the details from Washington.
Major security preparations are underway all over Washington, and that is because Kamala Harris, the Democratic nominee and the vice president, will be holding her election night headquarters, her celebration, she hopes, in the U.S. Capitol. There's more fencing going up around the White House, around the vice president's official residence as well. Some businesses are boarding up, and then at Howard University, major security preparations are in place and continuing to be set up in the final hours of this campaign. Harris is spending the last day of campaigning in battleground Pennsylvania, showing just how important that state is to winning this race. She's trying to deliver 2 points in her final message. One, sowing some fear about what another Trump presidency could look like, another presidency under Donald Trump, as well as offering what she feels is an optimistic alternative.
You know, when you love something, you fight for it. And that's what we're doing. And that's what we're doing. We love our country, and we are fighting for the best of who we are. And I love you. Thank you. I love you.
Donald Trump is spending the final day of the campaign hitting 3 different battleground states, and Trump is doing what Trump is known for. He's delivering a message that is not exactly the script his advisors have recommended, launching into attacks, personal attacks on his opponents as he tries to really rally his base.
So on Tuesday, stand up, you have to do it. And we have to tell Kamala that you've had enough. Kamala,
We're not going to take it anymore. Kamala, you're fired. Get the hell out of here.
Polls in swing states as well as national surveys suggest that this race remains razor thin, coming down to the final push to get out the vote. Katie Simpson, CBC News, Washington.
The federal government has launched another round of funding for research on contaminants in the Arctic, but Nunavut's MP isn't convinced it's a good use of money. $1 million will be available for projects for up to 3 consecutive years. The money is meant for monitoring and research proposals to do with contaminants in food. But the NDP's Lori Idlout says many communities already hold that knowledge.
There are multiple communities that have told me that they are aware of existing contaminated sites that are not listed with the federal government, and we need to make sure that communities' expertise is the focus, because they are the ones who know where all these sites are, and no amount of academic research will help.
Applicants have until January 20th, 2025 to submit their proposals. Now to another reminder for people in Arctic Bay, Nunavut, to boil their water. The Department of Health says it's a safety measure due to high levels of cloudiness in the water. All water for consumption must be brought to a rolling boil for at least 1 minute. This is the third advisory for Arctic Bay since August 26th. Yukon Doctors have passed a resolution to improve access to primary care in the territory. It happened at a meeting in Whitehorse over the weekend. The resolution calls on the Yukon government to fund a rural residency program. The Medical Association's new president says it would help recruit more doctors to the territory.
Which would essentially allow us to take people who have graduated medical school, have them come and live in the Yukon in our community, and train to become family doctors that are able to practice family medicine and support our system, but also able to understand the unique challenges of remote care and the unique needs of our Indigenous population.
Bryant says the association also wants to improve treatment for people with addictions and tackle racism in the healthcare system. Inuvik residents can get their swimsuits out of storage. The pool is finally filling up and will be reopening soon. The CBC's Des Loreen has that story.
Inuvik's pool was drained dry back in June, shut down due to concerns with a leaky foundation. Today, the leak is fixed and the taps turned back on. Newly elected Mayor Peter Clarkson expects youth in the community will dive right in when it opens. He's also hoping adults take a dip.
It's a healthy, positive activity, and we need to do that. And also get the adults back in the pool. Adults need healthy activity too. And so that's what I'm hoping, and looking forward to the day that it's open.
Officials say the pool should be topped up by the end of the day today, but no date has been set for when it's reopening.
There is no exact date, as there are a number of things that we still have to do with cleaning and getting signed off by public health. But those steps are in the works, and we look forward to residents joining us at the pool very soon.
After the pool is filled with water and the chemicals are balanced, staff say the health inspector can come in to give their okay to open it up. Des Loreen, CBC News, Inuvik.
7 students taking the Art Studio Social Enterprise program in Rankin Inlet are improving their skills and learning how to appraise the items they create. The CBC's Selma Eccles explains.
Nadine Uluyuk has a full-time job but sells earrings on the side. She is one of the students taking the Art Studio Social Enterprise program. Uluyuk and her classmates did 2 projects and were very pleased with the turnout.
There was some similarities, so we put together the similarities and designs that we liked. We sketched it out on the board, or first we put the layers together to see how we'd want it laid out. Then we put it on the board and we did the painting.
The murals depict Rankin Inlet as a hockey town and the paintings of hockey and hockey players. Tara Green, the program coordinator for Ilitaksinaq, she says they made a profit in the first week of the course.
So they designed 2 beautiful murals, and the rec coordinator, AJ, came and was very pleased with the product, and they made their first sale yesterday.
George Ipkangnak is the oldest student in the class. He says he's unsure how to put a price on his creations, but he's just happy to be there.
We all worked together on this project. I'm just happy to be a part of it. The drawing and the painting, it was a lot of fun.
The students will have a chance to sell their artwork at the Meladine Gold Mine next week. Salma Eccles, CBC News, Rankin Inlet.
Lots of snow in that forecast for Whitehorse over the next 3 days, picking up on day 3. So you're going to want to be sure to keep your shovels handy in the Yukon capital. That is Northbeat for tonight. For news anytime, you can always visit our website, cbc.ca/north. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Shannon Scott. Tomorrow, Northbeat will air early at 5:30 p.m. Yukon and Mountain Time, 7:30 p.m. Eastern, right before CBC's live coverage of the U.S. election. Have a great night. We will see you all tomorrow.
I know that I've been reckless, but it won't happen again. I love my daughter so much. I just need a chance to prove myself. Hello?
What you do?
I'm a thief.
Which insects are serially monogamous?
I'm just curious.
Can love help us live longer?
I feel alive!
Does heartbreak make music better?
I love this music.
Could AI compose the next masterpiece of our time?
Robot composers conducting robot music.
Do you really need to wait 30 minutes after eating before swimming? And why is something as big as time kept in something as small as a watch?
Oh, that's heavy.
When you get curious, you get CBC.
They're making more money than they have ever made in the history of the music business.
We have generation after generation of us not seeing a fair piece of the pie.
How do we keep the money from Black music in Black people's hands?
I think my dislike is born.
What was Amy calling it? The beef wars?
You don't tell me anything. You don't share your feelings, open up about your past.
It's not that simple, Amy.
Heart is pounding. This is very hard to do.
We both know it's not an easy task.
The Great Canadian Baking Show. Watch free on CBC Gem.